All right. This is going to be a continuation of our Hellenistic works. So once again, that means the works that follow the death of Alexander and reflect the spread of Greek culture across the Mediterranean and into parts of Africa and Asia and so forth. Okay, this particular work is actually a settlement, city, if you will, called Petra, Petra, Jordan. It is a very difficult work to uh, pin down in terms of what culture produced it, because many cultures had their hands in Petra. So I will do my best to help you understand all that. Um, it was first settled by a culture called the Nabateans. Okay, uh, that became part of the Greek Empire under Alexander, and later under Alexander's successors, the Ptolemies, which is why I put up here Ptolemaic Nabatean. I'm sorry, Nabatean. Later on, the Roman Empire encompasses this region as well, so it becomes part of Rome. Okay, it's very complicated, clearly. It spans also a broad period of time from the 5th century BCE, which is the High Classical Greek period, all the way into the 1st century CE, the time of the emergence of the Roman Empire, the time of Jesus, and so forth. Okay, but really, the most important structures we're going to be looking at are from this Hellenistic period, so you can think of them as being between the 4th and 1st centuries BCE. Okay? So, first of all, Petra. It means Rose City, and it is called this for its distinctive pink rock cut architecture. We're looking at some dwellings here. Um, and over here we have a map of, I believe this is showing Alexandra and Petra. Yes, so Petra's over here. Okay, so a little bit about the Nabateans. They were the people that controlled the incense trade, and they did this into the early Roman Empire. So the city of Petra, while it wasn't the only Nabatean settlement, it was an important one for trade routes of this incense trade. Okay, so what we're going to see here, um, our interest in it is the ways in which Petra is distinctly Hellenistic, meaning how it blends uh, cultures, blends Greek traditions, Egyptian traditions, and so forth, like were characteristic of the Hellenistic period. Okay, here's just a better shot of those cut rock dwellings in Petra. Okay, how Petra was entered is very interesting. The only way to get to it was through a narrow um, slot canyon, okay, that you can see here on the left. This was cut right into the rock through millennia of water. This area was very prone to flash flooding, okay? And it resulted in a city or an area that could only be accessed through these narrow slot canyons. And it was, in turn, a naturally fortified city. It was very hard to access, very hard to invade, and so forth. Um, Interestingly, because this area was so prone to flash flooding, the Nabateans they managed to control the water. They diverted the water through dams and were actually able to make Petra a safe trading city through technological innovation. So you can imagine right now we have some backpacking tourists entering Petra, but you can imagine in the time of the Ptolemies, in the time of the Roman Empire, and so forth, there would have been trading caravans uh, traversing through these slot canyons with various types of wares to trade here. Okay, these ancient sculpture fragments that are along the path actually show a trading caravan, and there's a lot of remaining fragments like this that point to the history of this area. Okay, I'm going to show you a few different structures here. Um, we'll work our way up to the most important one, which is known as the Petra Treasury. Okay, this one here is known as the Great Temple. It is likely not a temple at all. Here's another view of it. It's believed now that this was probably some sort of audience hall, kind of like the Apadana at Persepolis, perhaps. Um, Nonetheless, you can see, I mean, this is evidence of an advanced civilization, amazing infrastructure that can build such structures, control the flow of water, and so forth. Um, Being a Hellenistic city, they had Greek-style open-air theaters. But here we are with the main event. You exit out of this narrow slot canyon and come upon this building back here that's called the Petra Treasury. Some of you may recognize it. It featured into one of the Indiana Jones movies. It was it was where the Holy Grail was thought to be held in whichever Indiana Jones movie. I can't remember. Here's just another amazing photo of this building. And yet another with some kneeling camels in front of it. Okay, so this too is rock cut architecture, and this photo really shows you how this facade was cut directly into the directly into the natural rock wall there. Okay, let's move this. Okay, first of all, Petra Treasury is a misnomer. Okay, it's actually a tomb. We're not even going to talk about for whom, and we're not going to go inside because despite how beautiful it is on the outside, the inside is a mundane square room. All right, so I want you to notice I'm sure as you look at this, it seems familiar to other Greek architecture you've seen. We have our columns, in this case Corinthian. We have our entablature here, okay? And so you can kind of see even here we have a continuous frieze letting us know that this is a variation on the Ionic order, the Corinthian. If you hadn't noticed, here's some little people sitting that helps to give you a sense of the scale. But I want you to just take a quick second and look at the pediments here, okay? Especially this one on the top. What is happening with the pediments? Okay, this is one of our main points of interest in the Petra Treasury, is that it is a great example of what we might call an Alexandrian style or just the Hellenistic style, but it is really it's kind of taking those classical architectural elements, those classical Greek architectural elements, and reducing them to pure ornamentation. Okay, in those classical Greek temples, the pediment, that triangular space, had to hold a roof up. Okay, the columns had to hold the entablature up. But here, this entire structure is cut into the rock. It's not built out of separate pieces of rock. These columns hold up nothing. This pediment doesn't have a roof to hold up, which is why the architects start to become playful with the elements, okay? They're able to break a pediment, divide a pediment in half, because it's really not a pediment at all. In a lot of ways, it is the symbol of Greek architecture. It's the style of Greek architecture, but without any of its functionality here. Those are those same traits are things we're going to see when we get to 17th century architecture in Italy, a period we call the Baroque, but we'll get to that later, okay? Um, Broken obelisks next to this is the Tholos, which is basically just a round temple type structure. There were obelisks here, which is a Greek architectural form, but they're no longer there. Okay, first of all, we have down here depictions of these Greek twin deities who spent part of their time on Olympus and part of their time in the underworld. What's important to know about them is that they protected travelers, and Petra would have been a place where many, many travelers would have come through. So seeing these Greek twin deities would have been a comfort to those weary travelers. Going up top here, we see a number of different female figures in relief, badly damaged. We have Amazons here. Back here, you can kind of make out these winged victories, okay? And in the center is the most characteristically Hellenistic of the female figures. It is Isis. Um, I believe it's pronounced Tyche. Um, Isis being an Egyptian goddess, Tyche being a Greek goddess of good fortune. So we have in this blended Hellenistic culture, we have a blended female deity reflecting both the Greek and Egyptian heritage of the Hellenistic world. Um, the reason this is called the Petra Treasury has to do with a legend that this Tholos structure here um, was that it housed a treasure, and so over centuries, people have tried to break this open. You can just barely make out some bullet holes in the surface here. Um, the reality is that this structure is totally solid. It's solid carved rock. There's nothing in there at all. So this is where it gets the name, the Petra Treasury, when in fact it's a tomb. Just another little detail there. Okay, so that's it for the Petra Treasury. I'm going to move on here to our next to last Hellenistic work, which is the Nike of Samothrace. I bet many of you have seen this work. It's a very iconic work, reproduced frequently. My neighbor down the street has a tiny cast cement Nike of Samothrace statue on their porch, sort of like a little lawn ornament. Okay? So, um, while some of you may have seen this sculpture before, you probably don't know much about its origins, where it came from, and so forth. Okay, Samothrace is an island in the Aegean. It's a Greek island, and this sculpture was from a sanctuary high up on a hillside, and it was mounted up there facing the hillside. And this would have been an area in which many naval and trading ships would be passing frequently. Okay, so it was very high up on this small Greek island. It's this being Nike. She is also known as Victory. Um, this is the winged goddess, and so this particular sculpture is thought to commemorate a naval victory of Samothrace. Um, While and here's the important detail of the sculpture that my neighbor's cast cement lawn sculpture version doesn't have, and it's the base. And the base is so important to Nike of Samothrace because it gives it context. The base is in an entirely different marble. You can see that the Nike is in a kind of cream-colored marble, and down here we have a kind of gray-blue marble. And I don't know if you can quite make it out in this view, but she's standing atop a ship. Okay, so here we have a victory, a Nike commemorating probably commemorating a naval victory. She's perched high up on a hillside, facing the sea, in which many ships, naval and trading vessels would frequently see this sculpture. Okay, with Nike of Samothrace, we have yet another uh, version, another sculpture with missing arms, and clearly she's missing her head too. Um, we can deduce from other depictions of Nike that she was probably holding a trumpet of sorts up to her mouth, which would be sort of the trumpeting call of victory. We can't know with certainty. And it is, if you look online, you'll find some reconstructions of what she may have looked like. I decided not to show them to you here because honestly, I don't think that those missing limbs and head detract from the important essence of this sculpture. And that essence has to do with its drama and its incredibly lifelike rendering. This is a little bit blurry, but you can kind of make out the ship a bit better here. Um, it's for one, we have those use of multiple colors of marble. That's going to add to the overall visual drama of the work. And then here, from the side view, we can really see how she seems to be wind-blown, perhaps. Okay? Um, One of the ways Nike of Samothrace is typically thought about is that it's one of the earliest sculptures to interact with its actual environment, to acknowledge its actual environment. In this case, the wind and water spray of the Aegean Sea, which would literally be hitting this sculpture on its hillside perch. Okay, so you can imagine the drama of this sculpture. Okay, she appears to be really being blown by the wind. You can sense the whipping of that wind against her fabric, and the way she kind of pushes the weight of her body forward to brace herself against it. And you can imagine all of this with the actual seawater and wind splashing off this sculpture. It would all be very dramatic. Um, just a couple of close-ups here. If you can really notice here, this is so her belly. You can see the depression of her belly button here. Just this incredibly subtle handling of the fabric, where you get these thin creases where the fabric is pressed against her stomach. It even seems like perhaps the fabric is a little wet here from that sea breeze. And then over here in this other view, you can see how in other places the fabric is full of air and billowing. So it's doing both. It's being pressed against her skin and then billowing out in the wind simultaneously. I like to think about Nike of Samothrace as the apex of Greek artistic or Greek figural sculpture. For centuries, the Greeks had been studying human anatomy, the way it moves, the way it emotes, the way drapery falls on the body, and they have just been getting better and better and better as a result of a humanist attitude. Okay, and we see in Nike of Samothrace perhaps the most believable body in terms of believable weight, believable posture. The drapery hangs on it in ways that are complex and realistic, and all of that is brought together in a very dramatic sculptural display here. All right, so that leaves us with just one more Hellenistic sculpture, the boxer, the seated boxer, and we will tackle that one in class.